Before we start the video, just want to let you guys know we are doing a holiday giveaway over on the community tab, where you can enter to win holiday stickers and a note from me. Wow, so exciting. There will be a link down below, but you can also just go on over to my channel and click on community and then look at the post that talks about the giveaway. And people from anywhere in the world can enter, and the last day to enter is the 30th of December, so go do that. Okay, on to the video. They're very calm for most of the time, and then every now and then they just go absolutely batshit insane. Hi, it is Tom. No, I messed that up. Hello, everybody. That's what I usually say, right? Yeah. Hello, everybody. It is Tom, and welcome to another video. Yeah, so I wanted to make a video today. Oh, there it goes again. Oh my god! This is going to be very distracting, I can already tell. So I wanted to make a video today because, to be frank with you, insert jokes about me changing my name to Frank here, things online have been somewhat challenging as of late, as I've watched two content creators, one trans, one non-binary, who I very much enjoy and appreciate and admire, getting absolutely piled on by transphobic asshats, and that's been difficult. And as a result, my social media has been just flooded with transphobia and reactions to transphobia. And it's important that we do that. It's important that we speak up against it, but mentally and emotionally, it's a lot. So we are going to look at the next part of the Heartstopper comics, because Heartstopper is one of the things that makes us feel good. So we're going to feel good, I guess. So thank you for being here, and I hope you are well. And yes, okay. Yeah. So last time on Heartstopper comics, there's an itch in my eye, I almost said. My eye is itchy would be a better English sentence. So last time, we had Nick and Charlie getting caught making out by Ms. Singh. We had the really good mates comment from Christian. And we finished with Nick coming home and discovering that his awful brother David is home from uni. So that's where we stopped, with Nick's horrified face and David just standing there looking smug, which I do wonder, like, in season 2, how this is going to affect the hierarchy of awful people in Heartstopper. Like, we have Ben and Harry in the first season, and now we're going to have David, and, like, where is he going to fall? Are people going to hate him more or less? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's fine. I'm probably going to cut all that out. Okay, so we go to the next morning. So Nick, well, we have Charlie sitting in class in form, and Nick comes over and just looks very, Nick, mood, I relate, buddy. So Charlie's like, Nick, are you okay? And Nick just looks sleep-deprived and stressed, and he's like, late night. And Charlie says, how come? And Nick does very, very similarly to what we see him do in episode 7. Leans his head against Charlie's slender shoulder and says, "Meh, my brother's home and he's being shitty. I don't really want to talk about it." And Charlie pulls him into a hug and says, "Well, I had something I wanted to ask you. You know we've got the meeting about the Paris trip tonight? Well, Tao, Aled, and Elle are going to be there, and we could tell them about us, if you want." And this is a whisper. You can tell because it says whisper. And Nick's like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Are you sure you want to?" And I love how they're literally, like, holding each other in class. Oh, and we do have this one guy who's looking over at them with exclamation points. I never noticed this guy before. But, like, so someone has noticed that they're holding each other tenderly in the middle of class. And then Charlie's like, "Yeah, I mean, it's just my friends. They'll be cool about it." And then he looks around, and you can tell by kind of the little lines by people's heads that they're very quickly turning around and pretending that they were not, in fact, witnessing Nick and Charlie holding each other and whispering intimately. So yeah, it seems like the classmates perhaps are not as clueless as Nick and Charlie might think. Or as I initially thought, because I never actually noticed that they were looking before. So, well done me. So, Charlie immediately moves his hand away from Nick, moves his arm away from Nick, even though Nick's the one who initiated the contact. And then Nick says, about what you said yesterday, though. Oh, and what he said yesterday, in case people don't remember, is that Charlie was saying that with exam stress and everything, being out might be too much for him. And then was like, haha, don't worry about it, lol. And here, too, he's like, don't worry about it. And then in comes Mr. Lang. Okay, Hamlet 5, settle down. I know today is Year 11's last official day of the school year, but I still need to be able to hear myself to take the register. So Nick looking over at Charlie, Charlie looking sad, Nick looking concerned. So here we are. We have Year 10, 11 Paris trip information evening for parents and students. 6th form common room tonight, Friday 11th of June, 6 p.m. So you see people heading in, and a teacher, I assume, saying, just up the stairs. And then, oh, Nick's here with his mom, and Charlie's here with his dad. The best possible parent combo we could have. And Julio says, go and find your friends, you two. We'll just be over here. Chatter, chatter, chatter. Lots of people talking. And Nick and Charlie spot Aled and Tao. And Charlie says, there they are. And off they go. And Aled says, hey, I feel like we've hardly seen you two lately. And Nick says, exams have been ruining our lives. And Tao says, I relate. I'm not used to Tao being so nice to Nick, like pre-knowing about their relationship. But look at him, like he's smiling, he's responding to things that Nick has said in a positive way. It's after getting so used to Show Tao, it's kind of weird to see this. I guess the difference is that Tao and Charlie had the conversation in the bathroom at the bowling alley. You know, when Tao and Charlie come out of the bathroom after talking about Nick, and Charlie reassures him that Nick is not going to hurt him, and they go outside and Nick is there, and Tao says, just go. He's smiling and kind of fond and affectionate, so it seems like Comics Tao has already sort of dealt with his negative feelings towards Nick. Whereas Show Tao obviously takes a lot longer. So, all right, so then we have the girls have arrived. Tara, Darcy, and Elle, and they say, hey, boys. Tara just sitting right on Darcy's lap, love it. Says, Nick, I didn't know you were coming on this trip. And Nick says, yeah. And Tao and Elle greeting each other, hey, hi, both blushing. And we have an aerial view. So Nick talking to Tara and Darcy, saying, can you believe we're officially sixth formers now? And Tara says, our summer doesn't start until next Wednesday. And Aled's asking Charlie, isn't your sister coming on the trip? And Charlie says, nah, she said Paris is boring and she wants to spend her summer sleeping. And that's just peak Tory, like very, very Tory energy right there. And then Tao says, how are you? And Elle says, I'm good. You? Yeah, I'm good. So awkward, blushy conversation. And then they both look away from each other and blush. And Nick and Charlie both observing this. And Nick whispering, have they kissed yet? And Charlie says, I don't think so. And Nick says, they really need to. So the meddling gaze at it again. And we have, I love this kind of thing where we have like Tao looking over at Elle and blushing, and then looking away, and then Elle looking over at Tao and blushing. And then Nick, do you think now's the right time to tell them about us? And Charlie says, maybe it would encourage them to actually deal with their feelings. And one of my favorite Darcy moments, what are you whispering about and can I be involved? And then Nick says, we're trying to work out how to tell Charlie's friends about us. And Darcy says, just say it, man. It's not like they'll react badly, is it? And Charlie says, well, no, but... Good evening, Year 10s and 11s of Truum and Higgs, and good evening, parents. So once again, important moments interrupted by loud teachers. Though, it's Mr. Ajayi and Mr. Farouk, so I can't hold it against them because we love them. Okay, so Mr. Ajayi says, we've got a lot of information to get through this evening. My name is Mr. Ajayi. I teach art at Higgs. And I'm Mr. Farouk. I teach physics at Truum. So in this version of things, Mr. Ajayi does not teach at Charlie's school. He teaches at Higgs. And then Mr. Farouk says, we'll be supervising the Paris trip this year. And Nick says, we'll tell them after the talk. Yeah. So Mr. Farouk says, lastly, rooms will be shared by groups of 4, and no, there will be no mingling between boys and girls. Higgs students must share with Higgs students, and Truum students must share with Truum students. And then we have a groan, and Mr. Ajayi says, I know, but it's not appropriate for couples to be sharing rooms. And then we have Tara and Darcy exchanging knowing glances, and Nick and Charlie exchanging blushing heart eyes at each other. Now, we need one person from each group to come up to the front to write down your names. So we have Tara, Darcy, Elle, and Sahar. And then Charlie says, us four then. And Tao is the one who goes up, and Elle is the one who goes up. And Tao says, oh, are you going up to the front? And Elle says, yeah. And then we're left with Nick and Charlie and Aled doodling. And Charlie looks over at Nick with a question mark. And Nick looks at Charlie with 2 exclamation points. And Charlie says, hey, Aled? And Aled's, mm-hmm. We kind of wanted to talk to you about something. And Aled looks up like, hmm? And Charlie says, well, I guess this is a bit random, but we wanted to let you know that we're going out, me and Nick, like we're dating. And Aled has a ... and then says, I thought so. And they both look surprised. You haven't been quite as subtle as you think you have. Seriously, they have not been subtle at all. Elle knows too. I think we worked it out when we all went bowling. Yeah, so one thing I really like about this is that Nick and Charlie decide together to tell Aled, and then they tell him together. And similar to Isaac, Aled has just figured it out on his own because Nick and Charlie, whatever they may think, are not subtle at all. It's very clear looking at them that they just adore each other. So, and then Aled says, but don't tell Tao yet. And Charlie says, what? Why? And Aled says, here comes the bombshell. He might have been the reason you got outed last year. And Charlie's just like, what? It was an accident. We were just chatting in the corridor. He was saying how happy he was that you decided to tell us, but someone might have overheard. He would never, ever tell anyone deliberately, but he's loud and chatty and can't keep secrets. Don't tell him right before the Paris trip. And Charlie looks just shocked and devastated, and Nick looks very concerned. Charlie, it's okay, we'll... And here comes Tao. Okay, all done. Also got us some itineraries. And Nick's like, thanks. And it's Charlie, it's fine. And they both just sit there. And then we move on to text between Charlie and Nick. So Charlie says, no, Nick says, are you sure you don't want to tell Tao? If we specifically told him it has to be a secret, I'm sure he'd be able to keep his mouth shut. We don't have to tell him if you don't want to, though. I just don't want to be the cause of you falling out with your friends. Charlie, you awake? Okay, and that was sent at... Oh, okay, that was sent the day before at 11:02 p.m. And then the next day, Saturday, at 10:43 a.m., Charlie says, sorry, I had a family thing last night. I don't know what to do. Can we not talk about it right now? And Nick says, that's fine. I just don't want you to feel stressed. Heart. So then Nick says, want to come round today or tomorrow? And Charlie says, I can't. Busy weekend doing family stuff. And Nick says, how about Monday after school? Now I'm not at school. I'm going to miss my daily dose of Charlie. And Charlie says, it's so unfair year 11 get their summer holiday early. I'll come around on Monday. And Nick says, yay, I can finally make you watch Iron Man. And also we can make out a lot. And Charlie says, I'm excited about one of those two activities. Okay, so obviously this is something that has not been brought up in the show. And at this point, with season two not out yet, we don't know if they're going to take this route. But the idea that Tao is the reason why Charlie was outed, and it was unintentional, but it's still something that happened, obviously, and has had a huge impact on Charlie's life. And now is the reason why Aled is advising Charlie not to tell Tao about him and Nick, which, I mean, we'll hear from Aled again later about why he says this. But yeah, obviously this is really affecting Charlie. And I know in the messages here he says, oh, sorry, I had a family thing last night. But I do wonder if he was purposely avoiding Nick's text so he wouldn't have to think about it, because it's a big thing to think about. So now we move on to Monday after school, and Nick is lying on his bed with Nellie, scrolling through his phone, and ding dong, the doorbell rings, and Nick, big smile, polka dot socks, love him, and Charlie's at the door saying, hey, and Nick's like, hey, are you and Charlie just whumps onto his shoulder. Okay? And poor Charlie, school sucks without you. And Nick's like, I'd say I'm sad, but honestly, not being at school is great. And poor Charlie's like, I hate you. But then Nick picks him up and swings him, lifts him, pulls him into the house. Come on, let's go do nothing. And they have a lovely time where just hanging out in Nick's room. Charlie laying on the floor with Nellie, and Nick on his laptop in the beanbag, just having a nice time being together. And I love this of Nick just looking at Charlie playing with Nellie with a little heart. And then Charlie comes over and sits on the beanbag with Nick and leans against him. And Nick says, Hey, Char, are you annoyed at Tao? And Charlie looks up at him. No, it's not his fault. He's one of my best friends. He never would have done it deliberately. And Nick says, I still don't really get how people found out, though. And Charlie says, like Khalid said, he just spoke about it too loudly, and word spread around. Like, how did you find out I'm gay? And Nick says, I don't know, I guess someone just told me. Exactly. At the time, there weren't any other out gay kids in school, so it was the most exciting news of the week. People either thought I was a novelty or I was just gross. It really surprised me how many people are still homophobic. They tell me I was disgusting, right to my face. It got better after a few months, and some sixth formers got the worst of the bullies to stop. And then it was like everyone started waking up and realizing that I was a real person with real feelings. But the damage had already been done, I guess. And Nick says, this is why you're stressed about us being out. So, of course, in the comics version here, Mr. Ajayi is not the reason why the bullies stopped, because he doesn't even work at their school. But some older guys stepped in and got the bullies to stop. And yeah, and it's nice to see that Charlie is speaking openly about this, about how, like, you know, yeah, things got better, but it still really damaged him. But I also think it's very mature of Charlie that he doesn't blame Tao for this, because it would be easy to blame him, but Charlie knows that Tao would never do anything like that on purpose to hurt him, and that it was just an accident. Okay, and here we have a trigger warning. It says this update may trigger some people. To see a description of the triggering material, please scroll down to the update notes. It says discussion of self-harm. So this particular chapter has discussion of self-harm. So they're holding hands and Nellie is sleeping at their feet. And Charlie says, yeah, the bullying, it was really bad. And I started to believe what they were saying. You know, it's just struck me that, like, the whole reason to do this video was to focus on something uplifting and happy. And now Charlie's talking about when he was bullied and self-harm. So I'm sorry. Okay, so Charlie says, I started to believe what they were saying. It made me really hate myself so much that I used to cut myself sometimes. I don't want to feel like that again. Oh, and poor Nick looks really upset and pulls Charlie onto his lap and into a hug and just cuddles him and holds him tight, and then says, do you still do that now? And Charlie says, no, I mean, hardly ever. Sorry. Nick says, hey, no apologizing. Come here. Can you promise to tell me if you ever feel that bad again? And Charlie's eyes open like he's surprised by that. And he says, yeah, I promise. Oh, and then Charlie falls asleep on Nick's chest while they're watching Iron Man. And Charlie wakes up and is like, huh? And Nick says, hey, are you tired, or is the movie just really boring? And Charlie gets up and stretches and says, haha, just tired, haven't been sleeping well because of exams. And Nick says, well, my shoulder is available for naps anytime. To have a Nick Nelson shoulder to nap on. I tell ya, that's the good life. And Nick says, hey, do you want something to eat? And Charlie says, oh, no, I'm fine. And Nick says, you sure? You haven't eaten since lunch, right? And Charlie says, I'm fine. I'm not much of a snacker. I'll have a cup of tea, though. And Nick says, haha, you're such an old man. Hey! I think Alice does a really good job throughout this section of the comics showing very subtly that Charlie is not really okay. But they're not really things that pop out at you when you first read them. You might have like a vague sense that all is not well. But like earlier we have Charlie's comment about how, coming out might be too much for him. And we have him talking about how the bullying left kind of damage in his psyche. And then here, refusing food even though he hasn't eaten in a very long time. And probably, I mean, we don't know, but probably didn't eat lunch either. Okay, so then Nick goes downstairs. Nick goes downstairs to make some tea and some toast, and then heads back upstairs and hears voices coming from his room. And he hears someone saying, "Nice, and where did you meet?" And Charlie says, "Oh, we're in the same form." And Nick just looks horrified and is like, "David." Okay, and once again, this update may trigger some people, and the trigger warnings are biphobia and homophobia. So be warned. Nick says, "David," and David says, "Oh, there he is. Jesus, don't shit yourself. I'm just making friends with Charlie." And Charlie's there looking very uncomfortable, but thankfully with the support of Nellie, dotting. And Nick says, "Yeah, well, we're busy. Fuck off." And David says, all right, keep your tits on. And one of the most interesting things for me in this part is that we're seeing kind of a side of Nick that we don't usually see. Like, we only really see Nick lose his temper one other time in the comics, and that's when he's confronting Harry and punching him. So this is the first time where, like, we see him going into the situation with David just immediately being like, "Fuck off, get out of here, I don't even want you here," which I think is an interesting side to Nick's character that I will be interested to see it in the show. But also I think it really makes sense because I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of like being a completely different person around friends and strangers than you are around your family, especially a sibling or other family member who really pushes your buttons. So I think it's very realistic here. And Nick, as he places the tea and toast, "You okay?" And Charlie's like, "Yeah, fine." And David says, "I just wanted to meet the guy who turned my little brother gay." And Nick's like, "What?" And David, the lying bastard, says, "Mom told me. Should have always known you'd turn out to be gay." And Nick, iconic Nick, "I'm bi, actually, and so what?" And David, asshole, "I'm bi, actually. If you're going to be gay, at least admit you're gay." And Nick says, "This is why I didn't want to tell you. Haha, too late now." And Charlie just looks very upset about what's going on. And David, "What, I'm not allowed to be skeptical when you're randomly deciding you're gay?" And Nick's like, "No, you're not. God, I knew you'd react like this." "Like what?" "Like a homophobic piece of shit." "You tell him, Nick." And Sarah says, "Language, boys, what is going on?" And Nick says, "Mom, why did you tell him about Charlie?" And Sarah's like, "Darling, I didn't. I'd never. It's up to you if and when you want to tell people, including David and your dad." And Nick says, "What?" And David's like, "Okay, fine. I found out on my own. Not my fault you leave photos of you kissing lying around in your room." And Nick looks furious. And Nick flashes back to the beautiful pictures of them kissing from their day at the beach. And David's like, "I mean, come on, Mom. He's saying he's bi. What a load of absolute bullshit." And Sarah's like, "David, he can't even admit he's gay." And poor Nick, he's like, "I hate you." "Oh, fuck off. Boys, that is enough." And Charlie says, "Nick, should I go home?" I love how Nellie's always there being supportive. Like, Nellie just senses when people need her, and there she is, supporting. And Nick says, maybe that's a good idea. I'm so sorry. I don't want him to start picking on you too." And meanwhile, Sarah, "David, you had no right to search through Nick's stuff. It was just lying there on his bookshelf. It's not my fault." And Nick says, "I'm sorry." And Charlie says, "Nick, it's fine. Will you be okay?" And they look at each other, and then they kiss. Which is not Nick saying that he'll be okay. They're at the door, and Nick says, "I'm so sorry. I'll text you in a bit, okay?" Meanwhile, in the background, "You're being selfish, David. He's selfish for not telling me." Oh, God. And Charlie says, yeah, it's fine." And then the door shuts, and Charlie's left alone and kind of turns sadly away. So then we cut to Charlie lying in bed, saying, "Why is being out so complicated? In books and films, there's just one big coming out scene and then everything is fine, haha. Real life isn't like that, I guess." Yeah, and you'll notice that Charlie, much like me, likes to add a little haha at the end of things that are actually quite serious, that he's really emotionally invested in but wants to downplay. And then he says, "Are you awake?" Meanwhile, oh, Jesus, Benny. Is that Benny or is that Darla? Hang on. Benny got stuck behind my dresser, and I had to go dig him out, so. Okay, where were we? Meanwhile, at the Nelson household, just fuck off and leave me alone. No need to have a tantrum. Boys, no shouting. Frickin' David. Okay, so then Nick has just gotten out of the shower, looking upset, rubbing his hair dry, and then his phone buzzes. Nellie's like, This phone has been buzzing off the hook, dude. And then Nick lays down and checks his phone and is like, oh crap. He says, shit, sorry, I meant to message you. My brother's being a dick. He literally won't stop pestering me. Might be better if you don't come around here until he's back at uni. Oh, and sad face from Charlie. And Nick says, it was my fault for not telling him sooner, to be honest. Charlie says, no, you shouldn't have to tell him if you don't want to. I guess he would have found out eventually one way or another. I should probably call my dad soon and tell him too. Charlie says, you don't have to. You can take your time. Nick says, I want him to know about you. Plus, I want to be the one to tell him, not David. We get 3 sad faces from Charlie. Then Charlie looking sad in bed. Oh, Charlie's crying. He says, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. You shouldn't have to feel rushed or pressured by anybody. And I guess this kind of ties into Charlie's habit of blaming himself, which we see come out more in the show.
I mean, the fight with Harry was my fault.
It wasn't, though.
It was. It was my fault. I've been making your life really difficult.
But yeah, he feels like it's his fault. But Nick immediately, Charlie, this is not your fault, with 1,000 exclamation points. Coming out is hard and complicated, right? And it doesn't all happen at once, and it doesn't always go right. Sometimes it probably doesn't even happen at all. Coming out to my mom was amazing, but I never expected it to go super well with everyone. And it's not your fault. I just want people to know who I am and know that you're my boyfriend. And I know that not everyone will like it, but I'm ready for that. We're probably going to have to come out hundreds more times in our lives. It might be shitty sometimes, but I promise I'm okay, and it's all worth it.
It's all worth it to be with you.
And Charlie, oh, Charlie's crying. Sniff, sniff. And he writes, I love you. And he's about to send it. Meanwhile, Nick is being licked by supportive Nellie. And Charlie has a moment. I mean, I'm sure he's thinking about Ben in this moment, or at least reliving some of the experiences he had with Ben. And he deletes it. And then says, I wish we could just nap and watch movies all the time and nobody bothered us. And Nick replies, that's the dream. Okay, and Benny has just started scratching at his water bowl because he likes to make noise in the background of my videos. Okay, so that's the end of this section, which a lot of heavy stuff in this part. So again, great timing for me. Great timing for me with my let's focus on happy things sort of situation. But I think this is a very important... Benny, shut up. So not only do we find out that the bullying that Charlie experienced is still causing him so much, that he still has such a deep-seated trauma based on his experiences. And we learn that he used to, do self-harm and that he still does it sometimes. And we have Nick being supportive and wonderful through the whole thing, telling Charlie not to apologize, reassuring Charlie that what Nick himself is going through with his homophobic and biphobic brother is not Charlie's fault, and Charlie should not blame himself. But, obviously Charlie has a lot to deal with right now. So everything they talk about here is very important. And I'll be interested, I trust Alice and the show to get this right. So I'll be very interested to see how they handle this darker subject matter. I mean, we saw them delve into some darker topics in episode 7, but for the most part, season 1 was very focused on the uplifting stuff. And I hope that season 2 will also do that, but will not shy away from, dipping into these heavier topics, because it's very important. And I think seeing this kind of representation, oh, the lights are going crazy again, seeing this kind of representation can be helpful to people who are going through the same things, and kind of help them realize that it's not their fault and they shouldn't be ashamed of it, but they can get help and get through it. So yeah. All right, so I guess that's about it. Thank you as always to everyone who likes and comments and subscribes, and huge thanks to our patrons. And a special shout out to our Nick Nelson members, Kelly Walker, Book Nerd Charlie, Paul Z, and Michelle. I will see you guys next time. Yeah, that's it. I think my brain just ran out of steam right there. So, yeah, I hope all of you are doing well, and I will see you next time. So, bye.